Welcome back to Becoming Unbound. I'm your host, Carly Butler, a former teacher turned podcast manager and a freedom seeker on a mission to build a life that's completely unbound. On this show, we dive into real, raw, and inspiring conversations with people who are boldly creating lives outside of the traditional mold. And today's guest is an extra special one. I'd love to welcome Robyn Clark onto the podcast. Robyn is a powerhouse entrepreneur who created the Jewelry Business Academy to help women confidently build and scale profitable jewelry brands. With a background in science and marketing, she brings a unique mix of strategy, structure, and heart to the way that she leads and mentors. Her passion for connection, collaboration, and helping others thrive is at the core of everything she does. And fun fact, Robyn was actually my very first podcast management client. So this is a very full circle moment that I am so excited for. Let's dive in. Welcome, Robyn, to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Carly, and thank you for the wonderful intro. I'm super excited to be here. I'm super excited to chat to you and to see what direction this conversation goes in.
So exciting. Like I said in the intro, it's such a full circle moment. And I always knew I would kind of have a podcast, but I attribute so much of my learning and growth to everything that we worked on together. And yeah, it's been a wild ride sort of venturing into this industry and then starting my own podcast. So I thank you. And I have so much gratitude in my heart for you, and everything that you've sort of shown me in your podcast is something amazing too. My roommate, she loves listening to your podcast. So if anyone wants to go check out the Jewelry Business Academy podcast, we'll put everything in the show notes. But Robyn, I think let's start off with sort of, how we sort of got introduced, and then maybe we can go on from our story from there and dive right in.
That sounds great. And yeah, I love hearing that your roommate listen to the podcast. That's so fun. And yeah, honestly, Carly, just seeing you build this business and you're doing so well, it's just so inspiring and it's so exciting. And I love that you're now helping, so many other businesses get their podcasts out there and get their voice out there and build their communities. It's so awesome.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I didn't realize getting into this how much of an amazing piece of marketing, and how this can be such a great tool for businesses. And you were sort of the first look into that it's not just always about entertainment, or you hear like the true crime podcast. Like, this can truly be such an amazing piece of marketing and establishing community and a client base through podcasting. It's really wonderful, and something that I don't know that everybody thinks about.
Yeah, you know what? It's the most underutilized tool that we have for growing organically as a business. And so many business owners stay away from podcast marketing for one reason. And that one reason is that it's the most vulnerable. It's just the most vulnerable. It requires you being extremely visible, even though most of us are just publishing um, audio podcasts out there, but it's very vulnerable. And so people just don't do it. And the reality is, if you are just consistent, if you keep showing up, if you keep creating content that's going to resonate with your ideal customers or clients, or in whatever, literally any business, realtors, hairdressers, like coaches, product business owners. I do it with my clients, jewelry business owners. There's nothing better for growing your community, networking with other business owners, networking with people you need to sell to. There's nothing better, but most people just don't do it because it's vulnerable.
Yeah. So maybe let's tell our listeners, how did that start for you? What was your sort of first sort of introduction to understanding that world of podcasting, and how did that naturally, because I feel like it just was such a natural thing for you to do. I feel like you've got a great listener base. How did that all start for you?
Yeah, this is so interesting because I first decided I wanted a podcast when I was a jewelry designer many years ago in Toronto. And I was just being exposed to and meeting so many other designers, so many business owners. And the more I got to know all these people, the more I was like, wow, everybody has a story. We can learn so much from everyone's stories and everyone's experiences. And it's just so fascinating. It's so inspiring. And I said to someone really close to me at the time, I want to start a podcast and start like talking about these to these different business owners and hearing their experiences. And this person who I love dearly, but is not in the world of business, is not in the world of entrepreneurship, is not in the world of podcasting, and was trying to protect me, they said, no, who's going to listen to you? There's no point, like, stay away from that. So I shut that idea down, and I didn't end up starting my podcast for about another 4 or 5 years, which is crazy. And it's just a reminder that ideas are so fragile. Be very careful who you share them with, and be very careful whose feedback you're taking, because don't take feedback from people who aren't doing what you want to do. Take feedback from someone who's started a successful podcast and can actually give you valuable feedback. Don't take feedback from someone who has a fear of being seen and a fear of being exposed, because that was who was giving me this feedback. And I love this person dearly, but it was just not what I needed to hear. So eventually I did start the podcast when I had transitioned into coaching jewelry business owners. And it just seemed like a natural transition. You know, I was helping clients build and scale their jewelry businesses. And there's nothing better than a podcast to help impact so many people. Like, we have listeners, you know the data behind the scenes. We have, I don't know, listeners in like 96 or 98 different countries who tune in every single week, who are learning and growing their jewelry businesses. And there's literally no other way we can connect with so many people, have such an incredible community, and help inspire people to take action and make changes in their businesses and in their lives. So it was honestly just a really natural thing. But showing up on podcasts and using my voice was very unnatural. I shook like this through the first 15 episodes. I was so nervous. I was so uncomfortable being seen in that way. I was so uncomfortable talking on camera for that long. And it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, well, we feel the fear, we feel the discomfort. It's very normal to feel uncomfortable doing this because it's very vulnerable. And we're going to do it anyway because we don't care about that. We don't want to allow that. You know, I'd already allowed that to stop me taking action for about 5 years. So I was like, okay, it's not going to get any less scary. We just got to do it. And I'm so grateful that I did.
Yeah, wow, you bring up so many great points. First of all, yeah, to all the people that said, don't do the podcast, or, I mean, you got to kind of keep your own counsel on that. Someone once told me that, like, keep your own counsel on everything. And I think that also just feeds into, like, what does your intuition tell you? Like, will this be valuable to your listeners, to your community, to the people who run similar businesses to you? And the answer, of course, now we know is yes. And it's so interesting to sort of step into that. And I'm so glad that you did, because there's so much value in that. And I think being able to provide value to potential clients, to just other people in your community, it's something that's pretty amazing. So, Robyn, when you sort of have branched out into something, you started as a designer, jewelry designer, and now you coach people and you have the podcast. So in that time, how did you come to do that? Like, what was this sort of moment where maybe you can walk us through if you had any other jobs, or what was sort of that moment? How did that all become birthed? Hey friends, quick little interruption, because I wanted to ask, have you been thinking about starting a podcast but feel totally overwhelmed? Or maybe you already have one, but the editing, scheduling, and posting is a full-time job on its own? I get it. I was a teacher once, juggling everything and craving more freedom. Now I help people around the world launch and manage their podcasts without the stress. So whether you're dreaming of finally hitting record, or you're ready to grow your show into something that actually works for your business, I've got you. Editing, covered. Marketing, yep. Growth strategy, absolutely. It's a done-for-you solution that's as cozy as your favorite hoodie and as powerful as your story deserves. Head to carlybutlermedia.com to book a call with me today. Let's see if this is a fit, and let's make podcasting feel easy again. Okay, now back to this magical conversation.
Yeah, that's such a good question because it really, I mean, on one level, it happened organically. On another, I had to really kind of shift very much out of my comfort zone. I remember in the early stages, I was in the corporate world. I had a corporate job, and then I had another one, and I was climbing the ladder, and I was made marketing manager. And I was thriving on one level. I was like going to work, loved my job, doing the things. Um, and the first year or two, I was just like not really thinking about it. I was just like, great, I'm going to be director before I'm 30. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And you kind of just get caught up in the day to day. And then I started like getting to the point where I was really looking at the people around me who were directors, who were mothers, who were, you know, 5 to 15 to 20 years ahead of me on their career trajectory. And I was looking and I was talking to them, and I was starting to wake up to like, wow, their lives are not a vibe. Like, I can't believe I'm working this hard to be in this position. And I'd ask myself, well, is this just the way this person's running their life? And, you know, these people don't have time to work out. They don't have time to do anything outside of work. You know, we're working 9 till 5, but we had emails and meetings till 8 p.m., 9 p.m. That's standard in Canada. Um, Weekends, you know, you still have projects coming through. And there's this constant pressure to do more. There's the 10-day vacation that you get a year. And I remember asking, well, when do I get more than 10 days? And they were like, oh, well, for every 10 years, we'll add like 2 or 3 days. And I was like, I did the math of how many vacation days I had till I'd retire. And I was like, oh my gosh, get me out of here. Because it just, those 10 vacation days are not vacation. You're basically running errands, you're recovering, and you're sleeping. You're just trying to get your energy back. And I was like, it just felt so depressing to me. So I remember looking at other companies, looking at other jobs, talking to other people and being like, well, have you tried these companies? Have you done this? And I realized very quickly this was just a standard issue with corporations, with working for other people. And I realized that the answer isn't to go get another job. And I'm really glad I had that recognition. And I started doing research, and I realized that the only answer that I could find was to start my own business. So I bought a whole lot of business books. I started reading them on the weekends and evenings. And I just was like, okay, let me try figure out what I'm going to do. And I remember coming across this graphic one day where it's like, here's how you hit 100,000 in sales. Here's how you hit 1 million. And it broke down the different price points of like, you need to sell X amount at $5,000 or X amount at 200 or X amount at 50. And when you look at the numbers, it's so doable. It's so doable. I was like, oh, I just have to find a product. I just have to figure this out because I can do this, you know? And I ended up having a dream one day, and this was after I'd been made marketing manager, which, you know, you think, oh, when I hit this milestone, I'm going to be happy. And it was really eye-opening when I hit that, and I was not happy. And I was like, what's going on here? I thought this was going to make me happy. And I wasn't happy because I didn't have ownership over my time. So I woke up one night in the middle of the night with this dream, and I'd come up with a whole business. I was going to start this jewelry brand. It was going to be called this. It was going to be like dainty, minimalist gold jewelry. I knew exactly what it was going to look like. And I immediately got my phone, bought the website. The next day, registered the company. A few days later, opened the bank account. And 3 months later, left my job to go full time into this. And I knew it was going to be hard. I knew it was going to be rough. I had so much objections from people around me who deeply cared about me, who couldn't understand why I was throwing away what I'd worked so hard for. They just couldn't see how I was going to make this work. And so they were trying to protect me, and I appreciate that. And I just knew, like, I don't want to live the life any of these people are living. So I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to do what it takes. If it takes me 5 years, if it takes me 20 years, I don't care. I'm not going to suffer at a low level in the corporate world for my whole life. That's even worse than just going all in and suffering for a few years in entrepreneurship till you get to that point. So that's what I did. Went all in, eventually built this jewelry business, which was my full time for many years. And along the way, started like meeting a lot more talented designers because I obviously just taught myself how to make and design jewelry. So my stuff was basic, but I was good at marketing and I was good at getting my brand out there. And that's honestly the key to success in business. So I met a lot more talented designers who'd gone to design school, who did all this stuff, and their jewelry just wasn't selling the same because it's very hard to market and sell your own stuff. So a lot of blocks that come up, it's challenging. And so I started helping them on the side and eventually transitioned into coaching full time. And so now that's what I do. I help designers build and scale their jewelry businesses.
Yeah, and I love that you said that there was a lot of people that didn't understand what you were doing. And it's so nice to hear you that like you actually looked into the like if every entrepreneur had a crystal ball, I mean, I'm sure they would sort of look and see, what was the option for you in corporate, and you saw that and you were able to sort of see these other people's lives and recognize that that wasn't something that you wanted. And that is a beautiful kind of way of looking at it, to be like, okay, well, I could do that. Or, like you said, you could do a little bit of short term suffering, in those first 1, 2, 3 years of business. And then suddenly now you do have autonomy over your time. You are working for your own goals. And I'm not suggesting everyone go run out and be an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
But having that entrepreneurial spirit to do something for yourself, or to be on a team that you're working for an entrepreneur and you're sort of like working towards this goal that's aligned with your values, there's something so powerful in that. And I'm so glad that you took the brave step and actually saw what your life could be and then said, no, I'm going to go the other way, even
Yeah.
when people told you not to.
Oh my gosh, I think about that a lot. I'm just so grateful. I did this when I was very young, early 20s, and I'm so grateful that I didn't know what I was getting myself into because I think the older you get, the more you'll talk yourself out of things. Because I'm just going to say it, on paper, entrepreneurship has a lot of risks. If you want to write out all the risks of doing anything entrepreneurial, you can talk yourself out of all of it. And it's really beneficial sometimes just to be like, I know it's going to be hard. I don't want to know all the risks and I'm just going to go all in and get myself between a rock and a hard place and make it work, because there's nothing quite like building a business from rock bottom. You have nothing left to lose from that point. It's really beneficial. It's very hard when you have a cushy corporate job that you've been in for 20 years. I call it the golden cage, because now when you leave that and you start a business, you think to yourself, I need to leave and start at this level. And the thought of starting at the beginning just like keeps so many people locked in that golden cage, essentially.
Yeah, I love that. I call them the golden handcuffs.
Oh, yeah.
That was my life that I saw of like being the teacher, doing the retired teacher thing. And everyone was like, how are you walking away from this pension? Like, it seemed ridiculous what I was
Mm.
doing. And there is still parts of it where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that's kind of like there's a beauty in that, in just like having faith that you yourself as a person and your characteristics and your values, you are going to figure it out. And it sounds like you really did put the work in, and you really did do your best to figure it out, even though you didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny because when, like, you're probably in the same position now, when you see that how easy on one level it is to make your own money, and you build that confidence in yourself and you start to realize, like, even if the business you're in right now doesn't work out, whatever, you realize that you have the skills to generate money. It's so empowering. And I think a lot of people put so much trust in these corporations or like, or whatever it is, to be like, oh, they'll look after me. This is us. And I saw people being fired who'd given their blood, sweat, and tears for 20 years and immediately forgotten about. Like, these companies don't care about us, and we're not actually that safe. And I think if people recognize how and I don't want people to feel anxious when I'm saying this, but there's not actually that much safety in a job. I feel much more comfortable as an entrepreneur with the highs and lows. Like I feel much safer, which is just, I think it makes a difference when you can shift your perspective in that way.
Well, it's in your hands, right? Like
Yeah.
you are the only one that can either quit or fail. And I love in your podcast, you talk a lot about that. Like you can't fail at business. You can only quit. And if you
Yeah.
decide to go out on this life in an unbound way, trying to seek out a little bit more freedom, whether that's financial freedom or freedom over your own time, it's really up to you to make it work and to find those resources and to just have that faith that like, yeah, it's all up to you versus putting your entire life in the hands of a corporation or a big business that ultimately at the end of the day, they don't necessarily care about your well-being and the life that you're building.
Yeah. And they can't. They just can't. And I think like some people thrive in that environment and that's awesome. But for people like us, it's just, it's depressing. It feels stagnant. It feels like I'm pouring my blood, sweat, and tears into stuff. And no matter how much more I work, maybe you get bonuses, maybe you get a little bit of benefits, but we don't have that freedom over what we're doing, when we're doing it, who we're working from. And I think the best part of entrepreneurship, yeah, it takes years to get maybe the financial results, but from day one of being a full-time entrepreneur, you own your time. And I feel like that's pretty priceless. Like time is that one resource we never get back.
I resonate a lot with that. That was my one thing that I couldn't. It was like all my time is being dedicated to other families, to other schools, to another person's vision and dream. And it was like, what about my dreams? Like, what
Yeah.
about the things that I think about? And aside from just starting a hobby, which can be great, like all my time is going towards other people's successes. And what about the business that I wanted to sort of start or think about? And so it's really beautiful to sort of watch that shift of all of a sudden that time. And maybe I can say that in the first couple of years, and you can attest to that, that you don't necessarily all of a sudden have all of this time to do stuff. Like a lot of my time, it's, late nights, I'm getting up early, I'm on vacation and yet still working somehow. But for some reason, it's different because it's yours. It's like it's your baby.
It's completely different. Like I get so much joy working on my business and excitement and like I'll work on weekends because I want to, because I'm choosing to, because ultimately I see the rewards from doing that, which it's just so different.
So, Robyn, what was that first step that you took aside from having that beautiful dream that sort of dropped in everything? After you did that, what was sort of that first step? You saw everyone working, you saw the life that they could have, you had this dream. What did you do next?
I bought the website, registered the business, opened the bank accounts. Now, this is where I'm an all or nothing person. So anyone listening to this, I'm pretty extreme. I'm just like, oh, I go all in and I want to go dive in the deep. I don't recommend my approach to most people listening. It will mess up your nervous system. It will cause you a lot of people to panic and freeze. And it's not a good approach for most people. But for me, I kind of thrive with the all or nothing approach. So what I did was I formalized the business. What a lot of people do is they come up with this great idea and they're like, okay, I'm going to plan, I'm going to write lists, I'm going to think about it. And I've had clients who come and work with me after 5 years of thinking of this business or 10 years of thinking. There's only so much thinking you need to do for a business. What you really need to do is take steps that solidify it so that you're not going to bail. So by registering, by opening the bank accounts, by I registered for HST before I made my first sale. Now in Canada, you only need to register when you're making about 35,000 a year. I made the decision that that was going to happen. And a lot of people will be like, oh, I'll wait to register to see if it works. Well, what happens in business, if you decide to dip your toe in and see if it works, it's not going to work because business doesn't work like that. You have to keep going until it works. You can't say, I'm going to dip my toe in and see if it works because you're going to face so many challenges that are in your mind going to be signs that this isn't going to work, but that's just business. That's just normal. So saying to yourself, oh, let me brainstorm, or let me think about it, or let me dip my toe in, those people are not going to make it in business. And I mean this like with a lot of love. Um, I won't actually take on clients if they say, I want to dip my toe in, because I'm like, oh, you're just looking for the first thing, the first challenge. You want to have that approach of, I'm going to make this work. And if I don't, I'm going to pivot. That's okay. And you just start taking those steps. So I did what I needed to do to solidify it. And then I left my corporate job. I resigned. They thought I was crazy. I got re-offered my job multiple times after I left for more than double the salary, which pissed me off. And really lit a fire in me to be like, well, now I definitely want to make this work, because I'm just so mad that, that situation happened. Um, and so do what you need to do to solidify and actually start doing what's required to build that business. We can write lists all we want. We can do market research. Like, I'm not a fan of market research. Just get your minimum viable product out to market as quick as possible and see if real potential customers will pay you. See if real people will pay you. You can't go ask friends and family, would you buy this? Because they might not be your ideal client or customer. You just need to get that minimum viable product out, start selling, and start doing what's required. And so for everyone at different stages, it depends on your product, but get that product out there, start getting visible, start talking about it. Get your bank accounts and stuff solidified so that you feel like this is a real business, and then treat it like a full-time job. Like, if I think that's my best piece of advice, is treat it like a full-time job. And a lot of people will say, well, this is just a hobby. And you know what that does is it protects us from judgment, because when we say it's a hobby and it fails, it's like, oh, well, now it's not embarrassing to me to tell my friends and family that this failed because it was only ever a hobby. When we label a business of ours as a hobby, it's just a way of ourselves keeping us safe. That's all we're doing. Because when we label it as a business, businesses can fail. Businesses can fail. And so a lot of people protect themselves by labeling it as a hobby, and it's not serving anyone by doing that.
Yeah, that brings up so many good points. I think the dipping your toe in it, it's the same as an entrepreneur who tries to do too many things. Like, if you're just dipping your toe into either multiple things or just that one thing, yeah, it's not going to work. And I get it. Our body's always trying to keep us safe, and the people around us are going to try to keep us safe and say like, "Oh, hey honey, why don't you just try that and see
Yeah.
how it goes?" Well,
Yeah.
it's like, you seeing how it goes probably isn't going to lead you to a life of freedom, from unbinding yourself from expectations of a life that you see as miserable, of all these different things. Like, you're never going to fully get there. And yeah, it's really scary to go all in. I commend you, Robyn, for doing that. And maybe that's not everyone's style, but I can see how that would be sometimes the best way to just jump in the deep end and learn how to swim right then and there.
Yeah, and I definitely don't recommend that to my clients or to anyone listening. There's sustainable ways to do this where you are going all in with the time you have while you have a corporate job, and you're building your business sustainably and getting it to a point where it makes sense to step away, and you slowly step away. You cut down your work hours to 4 days a week or 3 days a week, and you slowly transition. So I definitely don't recommend what I did to anyone. But going all in you can go all in and still have your corporate job and slowly transition, and that's what I actually recommend.
I think that's a really smart way of doing it.
Yeah.
Speaking from
Much
two
more
people.
responsible.
Yeah.
Two people who didn't do that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So you gained a lot of, I would say, freedom in this, and we talk a lot about freedom on the podcast. So I would love to hear, what is your version of freedom, and how do you define it in your own life?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So I think, everybody has a different version of what freedom means to them. And I think it's so easy for people not to even take a step back and like ask themselves this question. I think a lot of people just go through life kind of on autopilot because we're more focused on what is expected of me. Like, okay, well, I need to go to university, I need to get this job, I need to go and do check all these boxes that was kind of laid out for me when I was younger. And so asking ourselves, like, well, what does freedom mean to me, is like such an important question. And I'm so glad we're talking about this. And it really depends on everyone's values. But for me, freedom is owning my time. And this is going to sound crazy, Carly, because I was thinking about this the other day, but I remember being 6 years old in my classroom, and I went to a lovely school in South Africa. I loved my grade one teacher. It was a beautiful, I couldn't have asked for a better school and all that stuff. But I remember sitting in class one day, having my rice cake in the sun and thinking, this is not a good use of my time. I remember thinking to myself, like, no, we had a good morning of work and stuff, but I finished my work ahead of everyone else. And then what do the teachers make the people who finish early do? Sit there and do nothing and wait. And I remember just thinking, no, this is not it. This is not right. This is not a good use of my time. Like, I could be playing. I could be doing other work. I could be reading. Like, something about this just isn't right. And I remember going through schooling and just always questioning, like, how does this, like, this is not making sense to me. I was an A student. I did really well. So I wasn't going through and like failing everything and being like, I hate school. I was like a star student on one level. And I was just being like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I don't understand. Like, we're children for such a young age. How is it better for me to be sitting in a classroom than being outside playing? How is it better for me to be doing homework every day for 3 hours? Like, I just didn't get it. And so for me, freedom means owning my time. Like, we have such a limited time on earth. And I think it's easy for us to sometimes get into that space of feeling like this is just the rehearsal. And one day I'm going to do this. And one day I'm going to do that. And so for me, I want to own my time. I want to control who I'm spending time with, who I'm working with, what work I'm doing. I want to do stuff that lights me up. I want to feel fulfilled. When it is sunny outside and we've been suffering through a crazy winter in Canada, I want to drop everything and go for a walk. When I'm not feeling well, I want to listen to my body and honor it and rest. When I'm feeling like I want to go see friends, I want to have the energy to go and actually see them and do things with them. I had my dog who had moved. He lived in like 6 or 7 countries, and he came to move back to live with me in Canada when I was in the corporate job. And this is going to sound crazy, but I remember recognizing, I was like, he only has a few years left. Like, I'm leaving him at home. I'm driving back at lunchtime quickly to see him for a few minutes, going back. And in winter, he wasn't really having a walk in the sun. It was dark in the morning, dark at night. And I was like, this isn't right. And that really changed my perspective in terms of my time as well. And I was like, no, this is not working. Like, I want to decide how to use my energy best. I'm an incredibly hard worker, but nobody is made to work like a robot 9 to 5. It's not natural. It's not normal. I remember seeing from 2:30 p.m. onwards, it was a waste of time for anybody being in the office. They were all just shuffling papers, pretending to do stuff. And it just felt ridiculous. So for me, earning my time is huge, having autonomy over what I'm doing, where I'm going. I don't want to go on random business trips to like places with people I don't want to see. Like, I don't want to be told I have to do stuff like that either. So yeah, you can tell I'm passionate about this, but time, I don't want anyone having control over my time. I want to decide what I do. I want to decide when I do it, who I'm doing it with, you know, and so owning your time is essentially my biggest value. And like, basically, feeling sovereign in your choices, like having that autonomy that I get to do what I want to do, when I want to do it in a way that feels good to me as well.
I love that. I love the image of little 6-year-old you in your first grade classroom. That's great. And yeah, there is so many moments, and it sounds like that never left you, that idea of like questioning, like, is this the best use of my time?
Yeah.
Probably not. And there are so many moments. I remember summer jobs of just like being in a corporation, just being like, is this like what office life is like? And now I was a little blessed. I got to work in a fun like environment in a classroom, but
Yeah.
yeah, I can definitely see that autonomy over your time is such a freedom that is underestimated. I feel like a lot of people don't understand that they don't have control over their time.
They don't. And here's the thing that people don't understand is that when you don't have control over your time, you don't have as much control over your health. You don't have as much control over your finances. You don't have as much control over your relationships. Like it impacts everything. So obviously financial freedom's huge for me. But I would even have been happy with like a lower salary and having that time freedom. Like I would have been happy with that. Um, the time thing to me is just like, it's the one thing that you can never get back. Like, would have hated to wake up when I was 70 and be like, my God, I gave all my youth to some other people. And I spent all that time working in air conditioned offices where it's freezing all the time, doing work that didn't fulfill me, just trying to be a good employee. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure this resonates with so many of my listeners because a lot of female listeners here. And I think one thing as a female going through the world, like there are some moments and cycles that you can't, it's hard to ignore, and just forcing yourself into this 9 to 5 over and over and over again with no regard for how we move on a monthly basis. It's absolutely wild to me. And the sick days that, we would have to like go into. And I remember like, you've probably had this experience when you put in a sick day for something that a male doesn't understand, and you're like, no, I physically can't get up, or like,
Mm.
I shouldn't be in the office today. I'm of no use to anybody. And yet I have to force myself to go do this. So being able to listen to your body is so, so valuable. And taking
Yeah.
breaks in the sunshine when you want, like there isn't a price tag on that, I feel.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's crazy to me that that's such a luxury in today's world, but it really is a luxury and it's not something I take for granted because I think, oh man, the thought of someone else owning my time would just be unbelievably stressful to me because I go through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship with so much peace and I just feel so grounded and I just feel so like grateful that, you know, when it's sunny, I can go for a walk. When I want to take a trip, all my trips are last minute because I'm just like, yeah, I want to go away next week or 2 weeks from now. And I go away and it is what it is. Like, I don't need to book time off. I don't need to ask permission. And what you said about being sick, it's interesting because I realized for years I didn't listen to my body for years. So I wouldn't even have thought, oh, I'm sick. I shouldn't go into the office. I never even did that check in. I remember going in and virtually dying, feeling like I'm dying. And that was obviously pre COVID because post COVID works. I think corporations are a little less into that. But my companies that I work for did not care. It was just like, you just come in, and it's crazy to me that we can go through, like, kind of punish our bodies in that way, like just constantly force ourselves to push through. It's just wild.
It doesn't seem very natural or human or based on our own like spiritual journeys, like all of those things that you feel on a daily, weekly base. Like it is so important to listen to. And I think just that forcing ourselves to do stuff. Like I remember like I felt physically ill and there was like a resistance to going to work. And I've talked to someone else on this podcast where it's like that feeling isn't just this feeling of, oh, I don't want to go to work. That feeling is real. Your body is trying to tell you something. And it's probably about time that we as a society start listening to that.
That's so interesting that you had that feeling, Carly, because I had exactly the same. I had like this full on resistance where my body just was like, I would actually just sob on the way to work. There was that period where I loved it, then that period where I was like, this is not it. And it made it really, really hard. And for anyone who's listening, who's like recognizing, like, oh, this is not it, one perspective shift I can give you to help you, because the reality is we need money. We can't just all quit our jobs tomorrow, is shift your perspective on your job and have a attitude of gratitude towards what it's allowing you to do, and then go and build whatever it is that you want to build on the side. while you can, because that perspective, I wish I'd had support at that stage with someone just saying, hey, yes, this sucks and this is not for you long term, but here's the benefits to it right now. And let's just be grateful for these aspects. Let's detach from these crazy people we have to deal with. Let's detach from the business. That's kind of quiet quit. And I hate to say that on live, but quiet quitting is the way to go.
Yeah, you bring up a really great point of just like, I think almost making like an agreement with your body and your mind and your soul and just being like, okay, listen, this is what we're getting out of this.
Yeah.
Let's sort of come up with a temporary agreement. Be like, okay, we're going to do this for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to go get out of it. And once your body and your brain understands that message that, okay, whatever I'm doing daily is temporary, it can get a little bit easier and free up parts of your mind to start, stimulating creativity or research into something that you're passionate about.
100%. It would make a world of difference. So I highly recommend like just being grateful for what your job is giving you, because everybody's job is giving them something. And then using that space that you now have where you're not being stressed about the job to just focus on what it is that you want to do.
Amazing. Everything here is so valuable here, Robyn. So, if you were to speak to someone, maybe a younger version of yourself or someone who's feeling stuck, what would you say is that first step to take for them or a piece of advice for them to? I know we've kind of already given a bit of really valuable tools, but is there anything else that you would tell that person who's feeling stuck?
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to my younger self because I went through a lot of stages of life where I was kind of hit rock bottom or I felt stuck. And I also went through stages where I didn't really believe in myself either. And I think the best thing you can do is get around people who are going to help shift your perspective on what's possible. Get around people who are going to also believe in you, maybe more than you believe in yourself at some points. Get into communities that can help you do that. Get coaches, get support, get a therapist, um, get friends who are doing that, and just start looking at like what's possible. Because I think so many people don't realize what's possible in the world we live in today. We have never lived in a better world for creating your own income. It's never been easier. It's never been more possible. And I think the first thing you want to do is just recognize that like there's options, and the hardest thing is choosing what one aligns with what you want. And I think so just surrounding yourself with people who are doing things that you find inspiring or exciting and hearing their stories. And then when you're feeling ready, just start taking messy action. We often think everything has to be super aligned and all the stars have to be aligned before we dive into something or before we build something. Um, but that's just not business. It's messy, it's scrappy, and be willing to be cringy, because entrepreneurship, there's just a cringy phase where everything you do feels cringy, it feels embarrassing. Let it be embarrassing. Nobody actually cares. And the people who do will come back years later and be like, how did you do this? Help me do the same. Because I've had that. I've had those exact conversations. So let things be cringy. I always like to think of 5 years from now, what will I be grateful that I did today? And that really makes it easier to do all those difficult things in the beginning.
That's great advice. Yeah, and get over the cringiness as soon as you can because it is cringy and it's going to feel cringy the week after and even the next day it's going to feel like you look back on either, yesterday or the 2 months before when you were doing stuff and it does feel like it because you're kind of bumbling around in the dark and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, the way I like to think of it is if you're going from wherever you are in the corporate world, or if you're a student, whatever, you're going from being good at something to being essentially in kindergarten again
Yeah.
because you're brand new, you're learning. So you're bumbling around. It's scrappy, it's messy, it's embarrassing. You know, it is what it is, but how sad would it be to look back on your life years from now and be like, wow, that calling that I felt like I had, that thing that I wanted to do, how silly that I was so worried about what Sarah down the street would think about me or what Ben from high school would think about me, that just because of being embarrassed of what these random people who probably weren't even thinking about you thought about you, that just because of that, you didn't go out there and build your dreams. Like that would be very heartbreaking. So we don't want to do that.
No. Amazing, Robyn. So thank you for sharing all of your insight. So for all the listeners, where can we find more about you and your story and everything that you do for your clients and your business?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Carly. This has been so much fun. And for anyone who wants to follow along, you can follow along and connect with us on Instagram. It's Robyn Clark Coaching. You can also listen to the podcast if you're a small business owner or jewelry business owner. You'll get a lot of support there. And that's through the Jewelry Business Academy podcast.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you for your time today. This has been so many wonderful golden nuggets that I hope everyone can kind of take and do with what they will and
Yeah.
maybe take those first baby steps.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Carly. This has been so much fun.
Awesome. All right, friends, that's a wrap on today's episode with the incredible Robyn Clark. I hope you're leaving this conversation feeling inspired, empowered, and maybe even a little more unbound. Robyn's story is such a beautiful reminder that you can follow your gut, take those big leaps, and stay aligned with your purpose. And you really can create the business and life that you're dreaming about. If you loved this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, share it with a fellow freedom seeker, and don't forget to check out the Jewelry Business Academy if you are a jewelry brand owner ready to scale with strategy and soul. Robyn is truly the real deal. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one of Becoming Unbound.